Wake the fuck up. It's time to talk business. Jared Taylor, Matt Best, and Evan Hafer proudly present Blackhearted. Sponsored by BlackRifle Coffee Company and Arson Wave.
Well, hello, everybody. We are back with everybody in the studio
Hello.
today.
Everybody.
Everybody.
Hey, diddle, diddle. Everybody.
You're in the middle.
And in flannel. And today, as always, we won't disappoint. We have a great guest, Mr. Josh Waldron, creator and founder of Silencer Co.
That's right. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Well, I guess let's start. You're just telling us where you're from. We can start there and go into how this all came about. And you guys are about to do yet another expansion of the building. So from there to now.
From there to now.
Yeah.
Give it all.
How far do you want me to go back? I don't want to tell people that I'm actually from California.
No, you don't have to do that.
Hold on.
Okay.
You can tell anybody.
This is a bonding moment. Where are you from?
Sacramento is where I was born, but I only lasted 3 years and they kicked me out. I've been here ever since.
Oh, okay.
Really?
I'm from California.
We're
so
from
don't feel bad.
California as well. So
Yeah.
You're from
We all had to
Washington.
get out of there, you know? Yeah, you're from Washington.
What?
JT. Oh, no, I'm from California. No, you're not.
I didn't move to Washington until I was 10.
Okay. All right. Sorry. So just go back as far as you want, man.
All right. So, I was an editorial photographer actually, and during that time I also did. I was a professional musician, so I would record on albums and tour with different groups. Don't worry, nobody knows any because
What
it was
instrument?
mostly guitar and keys.
Oh, wow.
So it was a lot of contemporary jazz, and so it was really boring. And we played a lot of boring places and did a lot of boring things. But I love music, so it wasn't boring for me. But I pity the people that sat in the audience on these shows.
Yeah, but I have a feeling contemporary jazz, like your boring audience, you're talking about like galas and like big functions and stuff like that.
Sometimes, yeah. But so we, I was doing that, and at that time, my partner, who is my best friend, I shouldn't say was, he still is. He's not dead or anything.
Jared was my best friend, so it's okay to say that.
But I'm not dead either.
What?
He's right there.
Yeah, mine too.
So he was a sound engineer, and we went into business together on a few things, recording studio, and we did a lot of different small projects together. And at that time, during that process, we were shooting all the time. Every time that we had any type of spare time or whatever, we were out shooting, and we started buying guns by the dozens. And I grew up.
That's the only way to buy guns, by the way, by the
It's
dozens.
easier.
Yeah,
it's
they
easier.
should start selling them in a baker's
I'll
dozen.
take a baker's
baker's
dozen of AK-47s, please.
Thank you.
And so really what happened was we were sick of wearing hearing protection. We'd go out on a Saturday. This is before we had children, and we had an entire Saturday to devote to like shooting, right? And we'd go out on a Saturday, and a couple hours into it, your head hurts so bad from having the stupid hearing protection on. And it'd be cool. Let's buy silencers. And I'm like, well, Jonathan said that, and I said they're illegal. And he's like, I don't know if they are, but neither of us knew. And so we started doing a little research and found that, in fact, they were not legal. And they were not illegal. Sorry. And but the funny thing about it is that it was so hard to find anybody that sold anything. Even the gun shops that sold silencers made it very weird. They would have them like shuffled off to the back of
Why
the
do you
corner.
taboo
Why do you
to
want
buy
those?
it.
Yeah, and
Why do you guys want those?
And you go online and do some research, and everybody, the way that they talked about it, this is like 2005, 6 time. The way that they talked about it was like, you're going to get your door kicked in by the ATF if you buy one of these things. And so we're like, crap, we're going to send this, these Form 4s in. Oh, I don't know if is this safe? It was very strange. So after you buy your first silencer or first 2 or whatever, you're like, well, that was really easy, and it's not nearly as hard as people say it is. And the ATF didn't come kick my door down, so then we started buying more. And one day, Jonathan, he's been an inventor since he was a kid. He actually his parents, I think, still hate him because of all of the appliances that he took apart and never was able to put them back together at a small age. But we invested in some machinery. This is before Silencer Co. ever existed, and we put it in our shop, and we started making this and that and the other, gun parts. And John was doing a lot of gunsmithing just for a side, hobby. And he came to me and said, "I think I can make a really cool silencer." And I'm like, "Cool. Well, we need a license to do that or we're going to go to jail." And so I put a business plan together, and I raised a very small amount of capital to get us in our first machine and get a small garage to put that machine in. So that was in 2008. We formed the company in February of 2008. Took us several months to get our FFL and SOT, got a machine. We raised like $110,000 from just friends and family kind of thing on what's called a private placement memorandum. That's boring stuff, but it's basically like a business plan that tells everybody that we may lose your money.
Yeah,
right?
You can expand into that, because I think a number of our listeners, like, that would probably be the way that they would start a business, is raising money through family and friends.
I'll give you a elevator pitch on private placements. You can't raise money legally without a broker's license. So if you go out and say, "Hey, if you give me $100,000, I'll give you 50% of this company that I'm going to start and start a business," it sounds pretty easy to do, right? To do it that way, but you could actually go to prison for selling securities without a license. So
interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
And so the best way to do that is to write what's called a private placement memorandum. And basically what you do is you list the business plan, what you're going to do, and then that usually is around 20 pages or so. And then there's about 15,000 pages of here's all the ways that we can lose your money. And that's the way basically you get around getting sued or going to jail if you raise money, because you have to tell everybody everything. So you really have to go dive deep and figure out all the different ways that you could lose that investment of these people. And then there's there's amount of shares, and you offer them the amount of shares per dollar that you set aside in that private placement memorandum. So that's how we did it. We raised $110,000 from 7 people, and so it was very small investments from everybody. Got a machine, got a building, all that kind of stuff. That was in about August. By the end of that year, we just went straight into R&D on the first product, which was a Sparrow.
Now, was that machine, though, was that the one that you guys modified yourselves to act like a CNC?
No, that was so before we started the company, we had these, we went literally from Harbor Freight, got these little mills that were like desktop mills, but they had the hand cranks, all manual mills. And Jonathan, being the crazy smart guy that he is, he bought all these motors and CNC, like PLCs and stuff, and he put together and made his own CNC machine. And
no shit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And
like the level of tinkering.
Yeah,
right
that's like next level tinker.
Yeah.
It's not,
well, the best part about it is, like, one of the suckiest parts about manual milling is how long it takes to change your tool. So if you're going from like an end mill to a drill or to whatever it is, you have to change that tool out and figure out what the offsets are and program it all in to do that. And he's like, so he got all the motors set up for this, and he's like, I hate changing tools. And so then he built a tool changer, like robotic tool changer for this little, I mean, we're talking a $500 mill, right? Like it was, it was amazing. So we made a bunch of fun stuff with that. And then that's what got us, kind of springboarded us into starting Silencer Co. So we got this new machine, and Jonathan dove super hard and deep into this machining thing. And while he was doing that, I was, trying to raise more money. I was going out, getting all the marketing put together, and we've released our first product in January of 2009. And
you're coming from a professional
Photography,
photo background, so the marketing part, I'm sure you enjoyed, and
that was
easy for you.
That was my baby, and that's one of the reasons still to this day that even though that all of the people in my department put me to shame as far as their skills in marketing, it's still something that I feel like is my baby, because I put such importance to that part of the business when we first started, and so it's always remained something that has, R&D and marketing get the most budget. So, and that's just what makes us unique, I think. But
Right.
Heck yeah.
so from that point on, it was just like crazy. We thought, I was doing the projections, the business side of things, and we're like, John and I said, yeah, I think we can probably sell 200 of these Sparrow, and then we ended up selling like 700 or something of them in the first very small amount of time. We're like, whoa. And we quickly outgrew this. We had a teeny little garage that we leased, and we had to break our lease and move into our current building, which before we did the expansion, we moved from like a 2,000 square foot garage with one little office to 36,000 square feet with one machine and two of us. So
Dream big on that one, huh?
yeah. So yeah,
I like
it was a dream big kind of a moment, but I felt like we really had something, and I felt like we got the building at the right price because it was right in the crash of the market, and people were literally just dying to get anybody to rent their space, and so we signed a lease, and then we ended up buying the building just a couple years later. Once we filled it up with machines, it didn't take long. And we were out of space out of this 36,000 square foot building. But it was funny when as soon as we got into that building, we started R&D on the Osprey, which changed the market. The Sparrow changed. It caused obsolescence in the industry for all of our competitors. People were literally pulling product off the shelves because they couldn't sell it anymore, because why would someone want an inferior product? And so it really started changing things. And then the Osprey did the same thing. All of a sudden, we had the first hearing safe 45 silencer, and we had the 9mm as well, 40 in a 40 caliber. And even though that nobody shoots 40 caliber, we still made one for some reason. I don't know why we did that. And that went crazy. And so we started hiring people, and we started buying more machines, and then in 2011 or 2010, we bought SWR, which was our biggest competitor. One of our biggest. It was number two. They were number 2 in the market. AAC was number 1. SWR was 2. But we owned rimfire silencers, and we owned 45 caliber silencers. That we were the market leaders in those two categories. And with buying SWR, we picked up. We secured our spot because they had a great selling rimfire stuff, and then they also had an amazing 9mm market. They owned the 9mm market, and so we bought that up. So now we had those categories basically secured as the market leaders, and then they had experience with rifle silencers, which springboarded us into creating the most popular rifle silencer in the world as well, which was the Saker, and then now it's the and then we moved from there to the Omega, which is our highest selling rifle silencer. But that's kind of the
I own an
timeline
Omega.
Yeah, good.
They're nice.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's quiet.
It is quiet.
I love the stigma with suppressors and silencers, that everybody, like, how they're this crazy,
Only hitmen need them.
hitman, item, when in reality it's mainly like, I just don't want to wear ear pro at the range. Just want to wear my glasses and call it a day,
Yeah, well, yeah, and then hunting, which is something I'm
Exactly.
sure that everybody in this room loves to do. I spend a lot of time hunting. You don't wear hearing protection when you hunt. If you do, you're not going to hear anything that's around you.
Right.
It's number one, it's dangerous, and number two, it makes you a
Or you
less
see your
effective
trophy
hunter.
buck and you're trying to like throw in your ear pro because you're
Right.
shooting a 300 Magnum. Like, I'm blowing my eardrum out if I shoot this thing.
Right. I mean, sometimes it takes you days to find whatever it is that you're hunting, and you finally find it, and you're not going to be like, hold on a second, Mr. Buck or elk or whatever. I'm going to put my ear pro in. It's stupid. So everybody takes a shot without hearing protection. It takes one time with a rifle to cause permanent hearing loss. One shot.
Wow.
Genetics plays into some of that. Some people have, they're more prone to hearing loss than others. But the problem is that it's exposure. How many of those shots can you take before you permanently lose hearing or permanently have tinnitus? I have tinnitus from shooting my mom's .38 snub nose, without hearing protection. And then I shot a deer when I was 17 or 18, like that, with a 243 without hearing protection, and my ears have never stopped ringing. You know, I'm almost 40 years old and they're still ringing every day. So, you know, this is a hearing health issue, and that's why it's so important to me.
That's awesome. And I'm just looking through some of the stuff, and one of your guys had brought something pretty cool into the office the other day that we got to check out. Are you allowed to talk about the Maxim 9 that you guys have?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what is this? It's an integrated suppressed 9mm, if I'm correct.
It is, and I'll back the story up a little bit and tell you.
Please.
So, the way that this came about, when we designed the Osprey, we wanted to make something that was really short, but still hearing safe. And really, when we were doing that, Jonathan said, "Man, the problem is it doesn't matter how short the silencer is when it's on the end of a gun, it's too long to carry. Right? You can't holster a pistol with a silencer on it. It's just not reasonable at all. And wouldn't it be cool if we could just build it all together?" Well, at the time we had some people that were involved in the business that didn't think that was such a great idea, and once we kind of got rid of that old guard way of thinking, Jonathan and I kind of went forward with our dream. But in that process, we made the Salvo, which was the shotgun suppressor. And that, so basically, if you think of the succession plan, it was like, you know, the first hearing safe 45 silencer, it was not round, it was octagonal.
Right.
It was an eccentric bore, meaning the bore was on the upper half of the suppressor. And so that led into, well, let's make this thing for the shotgun, which is the same kind of concept. It's not a round silencer, and then it had modularity, so that you could change the length depending on what kind of use you were using it for.
And it looks super fucking cool, by the way. I'm looking at it right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then what we learned from those two products is really the only way that we were able to build the Maxim 9, because it took the idea of that eccentric, the not round silencer, and put it on a gun and build it into the gun, and then the modularity from the Salvo to be able to change the length of the Maxim 9, which means that if you want to shoot anything from plus P plus 9mm ammo all the way to something that's heavy grain subsonic round, it's hearing safe. Or you can take 1.2 inches off of the length, make it smaller and even more concealable, and shoot subsonic rounds hearing safe. So that was one of the objectives that we really wanted to meet with this whole thing. So there's no way that we could have done the Maxim 9 without doing the other things that nobody's ever been able to do.
What's the official release of Maxim then? When is that?
We are in what's called 1A, 2A, which is where we build hundreds of these at a time and then take samples with using production tooling. So one of the challenges in is owning your own R&D and owning your own production is getting it from R&D to production and still have the same quality, same durability, same meet all of the same tolerances and specs. Because when an engineer is building it, it's a lot. It's more of a craftsman type of a thing. Everything is kind of hand fit to make it proof of concept, and then it gradually gets into production. That production process is where we are now. We're moving it into production, so we're making hundreds now, testing, and we take random samples through the hundreds that we make, and shoot them 10,000 rounds through each of them, and make sure that there's no failures, and then we're ready to ship. So we should be shipping in April.
Wow.
So yeah.
All right.
I have a quick question too. So
Sure.
Is there like an ATF regulation, because I have no idea, on far as what classifies a suppressor? Like, is there a certain decibel level that you have to reach, or is it just any method or type of suppression of that firearm?
Basically, what the definition is anything that diminishes the report at all.
So even if it was still
0.1 decibel.
it could break your eardrum, it could still be a suppressor. But do you guys shoot for that goal, as obviously to be like decibel safe for like a human ear?
Yeah, we don't want to release a product that's not under that 140 threshold.
Okay, so 140.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and that's an OSHA, standard.
What's your average?
Good old OSHA.
Good old
Your
OSHA?
average
Old
across
OSHA.
the board decibel level for? suppression?
It's hard to say what the average is because every gun has such a variety of different, powder and different weights of the projectile. So it changes things, the bolt opening.
Everything under 140.
So everything under 140. And, I think that a 9mm is a good 9mm if it's in the 120 decibel range. A good 45.
That's when Jared was single. When he'd go to bars, is anything under 140 was cool.
Anything over.
You're being conservative. I would say anything,
anything under 300.
You were not decibel safe with your.
I was
300.
definitely not decibel safe.
Hey, we all have that one friend, right?
I'd sometimes start calling it decibel safe.
So I do have a question about the hearing safe regulations, right? So and I don't know if this is myth, so I'm just going to throw it out. I was having a conversation with a guy, and he was telling me actually the standard was written based on somebody standing like 8 feet away from a generator or something like that, versus the suppressor market is not really built for sound right next to the ear. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So
Good question.
So something you got to understand is it's all about exposure. So if you can think of like a graph of decibel levels and how much exposure that you can have before there's hearing damage caused, right? And so if you say 80 decibels, start there, which is about like a loud conversation in a bar is a sustained 80 decibels, right? Notice after you go home and you go to the bar, your ears are ringing when you're trying to go to sleep. It's just like bah! In your ears, and it's horrible. So that's actually just as bad for your ears as one very quick exposure, which is a millisecond of a gunfire at a higher decibel range, right? So it's not as if lower sounds don't damage your ears. It's about the amount of exposure that you can have to that. And that graph kind of meets the middle where it's an instantaneous hearing damage at one exposure, one millisecond of exposure is that 140.
Interesting.
And so, every time that you can knock a couple of decibels off of that graph, basically, you have a massive amount of exposure that you can add on to that.
Huh.
And so, does that explain it?
No, it does. Yeah.
It's like a compounding effect. Or
It
something?
is, yeah.
Okay.
It's super interesting.
And it's it's a logarithmic scale. Decibels are so every 3 decibels is a perceived 50% reduction. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty cool to see you guys go through all that testing rather than just saying we met a certain decibel level. That's awesome.
But the U.S. military, they're the ones that kind of said, all right, it's 3 meters away from the muzzle.
So that's where you guys do the testing?
Directly off to the left of the muzzle, 3 meters up from the ground. They have all of the mics and weight, weighting scales and everything that are specified in the military test.
So when you release a product like a suppressor, a new one, do you actually have the ATF come out and do these tests?
No.
So
This is all something that we did.
in-house?
ATF doesn't have any of the. It's not like the Food and Drug Administration.
I just didn't know if they did
kind
like
of
a
thing.
QC on you guys to
Yeah.
ensure that like the
No.
specifications you said, okay.
No, in fact, they don't care how loud or quiet it is because
They just want their tax stamp money.
They just want their tax stamp money.
So that's interesting because sometimes you'll either shoot like a break that there's perceived loss of I guess sound in a break, right? But there's
I've
really
seen
no
amplification of sound out of a
So
break.
depending on where you stand.
Yeah.
because
Most muzzle
of the
brakes actually make it louder because what's happening is the gases come from the muzzle, hit the baffles of the brake,
Right.
and then project the sound
Yeah,
back
like
to you.
like if you've shot that Jay's the tan one that we always shoot,
The
standing
ACR?
off your
Well,
side.
that's
like,
my question, which is like a lot of the brakes that I've shot. If you're standing like at a 45, it's horrendous. It sounds like a howitzer versus if you're in line with the rifle, there seems like a dramatic loss.
Sure, and it's all about propagation. The sound doesn't get louder or quieter. It's all about where
it's
sending,
directed?
Yeah, where it's
Well,
directed.
it's essentially overpressure, right?
And
With the
it
sound,
is
so it's like
overpressure,
you're
yeah.
eating that element of gas release, which is like those muzzle brakes tend to be canted off because
Yeah.
it's meant to go off the user. But when you're shooting online or stepping forward on a barrel, it tends to be way worse.
Yeah, and one of the problems with the brakes too is that percussive blast,
Yeah.
which it increases that because when it comes out of a muzzle without any muzzle device on it, it's an easier it's a less abrasive blast, as you guys know. But that blast, that vibration from the blast, even with hearing protection, you can still have hearing damage just because of the vibrations that you get through the bones in your face and through like the vibrations of the ear pro that you're wearing and all that kind of stuff too. So the only the truly effective way to protect your hearing is to suppress the source and not try to kill it at the ear.
I have a suppressor from a competitor, and that's what it does. I think it amplifies the noise.
Really?
Yeah, it's really good.
It's really good. It's a loudener.
It's really nice. I like it.
Where would be like the point of highest like decibels that come out of one of your suppressors? Like if you're off the barrel to the side, in front of it, I would imagine the most, because the gases that are not contained are released directly out of the suppressor. I don't know like how it works.
Yeah, I think that it's directly 90 degrees is probably where it's going to be the most. Standing in front of it would probably be the most dangerous.
What? Oh, there's a projectile coming out, you know?
Interesting.
So I think that the hearing damage would be the least thing that you're worried about in that sense.
True.
But, yeah.
So back to when you guys kicked this thing off, like you had talked about two big gaps in the market, like how the companies that did exist just had non-existent pieces to this. If you could talk about that, like, and why you succeeded so fast.
Yeah. So during that whole time when I was writing that PPM that I told you about, there was all of my market research and my experience of buying silencers before that all led to, all right, the biggest problem with this industry and the way that we can gain competitive advantage the fastest is to focus on customer service and controlling our own manufacturing, so vertical integration. And not only just that, but controlling our R&D too. So a lot of these companies would kind of tease an idea. Oh, I've got this silencer. At the time, it was AAC. They showed this thing called the black box, and it was kind of what the Osprey is, and they were trying to do. And they never were able to get it into production because they didn't have a R&D facility. Every idea that they had, they'd have to make drawings, which takes weeks sometimes, send it to a shop and wait weeks, get it back, and then test it, and then make the iterations, and then send it back and wait weeks, and all that kind of stuff. Whereas, we saw that if we can just control that R&D and control our own production, then we could actually bring things and supply the demand. Even though the suppressor market was so small at the time, nobody could meet the demand even back then. So you would go and try to buy something, and nobody had anything in stock. So what you'd have to do is put money down to get it to order. So then the dealer would have to order it from the manufacturer, and then that process would take weeks, and then we'd get it, and then you'd have to do a Form 4, which took months. So it added time to it. And I said, customer service is a big thing too. So all of the competitors at the time were just horrible at that too. So I said, if we just do good customer service, good marketing, good vertical integration, control our own destiny, basically, we could own this market and create a market, even if we had shit products.
Right.
Well, it turns out we didn't have shit products. We had the best products. So that was just yet another thing that gave us a competitive advantage. And really, I don't know. There was a few other companies that came around the same time that we did, and they're no bigger than we were back when they were back then. So we've been able to grow the market so quickly, but take all of the market share as it's growing.
Right.
When we started, there was about 18,000 silencers sold in total in the industry in 2008.
Really?
Last year there was 180,000 sold,
right.
And Silencer Co. did 120,000 plus of those. So you can see that Silencer Co. is roughly 70% of the market.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I'm thinking back to my first suppressor was right around that same time. It took forever, like forever, and I felt like it was Christmas for 6 months. between the paperwork and putting your deposit down, like finally getting it.
No, that
getting it
feels
out
like
of the
the
box.
Grinch stole Christmas
Yeah.
because you have to wait 6 fucking months.
You know,
for it.
by the time I got it, it was like it was so awesome. And then to put it on a rifle, shoot it, and then put your Earring Pro on to use it. It was an awesome feeling. $2,000 and still using Earring Pro. It's great. It's really, really, really good stuff.
I will say that's like one of the few things in like buying and purchasing any type of firearm or accessory that it's kind of not taboo but really exciting is a suppressor.
It's super.
Well, I
yeah,
remember
it's super
looking
exciting.
at them in
Yeah.
2008, and like the average price was $2,000, and it was like, oh god, I have to spend that much just for one.
Yeah, exactly.
But I want 9.
Yeah, I want them all. That's pretty interesting. And that's funny because, when you're looking at it from the outside, not knowing you prior to this point, looking at the brand, what it's done in those timelines, paying attention to the brand just because we're, in and around shooting all the time. When you guys really ramp things up, I think when at least from my perspective, it was from an outside perspective, the salvos, when I was like, whoa, these guys are doing amazing things, especially marketing, and your brand position was incredible. And that was the thing that I loved about it. The first video that I saw was actually a news release here on KSL. What year was that? Do you remember? 12?
Was that the Johnny Drone Hunter?
No, it was a news release just about you guys were getting ready to release the salvo.
Okay, so yeah, that would have been 2014, I guess.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course I'd heard of you guys, but I hadn't paid attention to the branding. Past that point, I paid attention to everything. And the way that I've actually described BlackRifle to people is, imagine if, a competing coffee company, which is a hipster coffee company, X over here, had a baby with Silencer Co. and it came out as like a bastard child of BlackRifle coffee, right? So combining really cool things that are happening, cool branding positions in the shooting industry, and then the branding position from a cool coffee company, whack, here you go.
It's funny that you say that because I was in a management meeting. This is about the time that we started kind of doing stuff with you guys, right? Getting mugs or whatever it was, the collaborations. And I was sitting in a management meeting with all of my executives, and I said, all right, so I've been paying more attention to BlackRifle coffee, and I really think that even though that your branding may be a little bit more edgy than ours,
Right.
We're more conservative, but your philosophy here is so similar that I was like, we need to do more with these guys, just because they have, they think the same way we do in regards to marketing and in regards to a lot of the ways that you run your business.
I think it comes
it's-
from the creativeness too. I mean, you were creative before you got into this. These two are also creative. Video editor, music writer, music, video editor, photo. Like, we're seeing a pattern here. I think that pattern is we have always cut out that middleman that we had to explain our vision to. And we just did it. So instead of taking a photo guy and trying to tell him what we're looking for in our head, we just went out and did it ourselves.
That's the vertical integration that I'm talking about.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was
it's-
gonna say. It goes back to you're talking about the vertical integration because it's awesome. Like what you can conceptualize, you can actually develop and then put it into a product you can touch rather than going back and forth with manufacturers. And that's the same thing I think with the coffee. Just we try to take it all in our own hands, and where we want it to go, lose or fail, it's our own destiny, which is exciting in business. I think it's the only way to do business because it makes it way more fun.
Yeah. Weren't we just talking about that? What was it, 2 days ago when I was, JT and I were in his office, and we said one of the most exciting things about being an entrepreneur is the journey. It's like putting yourself out there and having all of this weird stuff happen to you and all of the things that you learn and all of the stuff. It's just sometimes I'm sure everyone in this room has been, in a position where they're like, how did I get here? Like
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
So I get this. I ended up going on this celebrity hunt. It was a fundraiser for Chuck Norris's foundation, which is called Kickstart Kids. And I met Chuck Norris, and he turns out to be this really cool guy, and we had a great time. But this was like months ago, right? And I didn't think that I'd ever stay in touch with Chuck Norris. And then all of a sudden, I get a phone call. Hey, I've been thinking a lot about you since we were hunting in North Dakota, and I really would like to have you and your wife at my ranch. And this was last weekend. So like,
You're just like, how did I get here?
So the best part is we're sitting. He has this medical device. I think this is what makes Chuck is this medical device that he's like, oh, you need to try this. This is going to take some of your pain away. For those listeners that don't know, Josh Waldron here, CEO of Silencer Co. I'm paralyzed from the waist down from an auto accident when I was 15 years old. Mm-hmm. So I have massive amounts of pain that I deal with all the time. And he says, oh, I have this thing. It's like an electromagnetic shock device. It shocks the living shit out of you. And there's no it's not like a taser or a stem unit where you feel the shocking pain on your skin. It's like it's pulsing through your body. It's like being shocked from the inside out. So I'm sitting in his bedroom, because that's where the device was. His wife is just sitting on their bed reading a book. My wife's kind of chilling, talking. Chuck's got his feet up in the lazy boy, falling asleep because he's 77 years old, and that's what old people do. And I'm like, Chuck. He's like, yeah. I said, this is the strangest thing in the world. Like, when I was watching Walker, Texas Ranger, when I was like 15 years old or whatever it was, there's no way that I would have thought, oh yeah, a few years from now, I'm going to be like sitting in his bedroom getting shocked. And he started laughing like crazy. So, but that's, that's one of the things that we get to do as business owners, as entrepreneurs, is to put ourselves out there and control our own destinies. And that is so important. And I see you guys do that. I see you guys going down to Costa Rica and all these places and finding the right beans. And like, that's exactly the same philosophy that Silencer Co has. Is like, no, let's cut out all the crap in the middle. Let's just go. Let's do this ourselves. Let's rewrite how business is done. So
I like it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we talk about that quite a bit. Actually, it's like we just kind of not necessarily throw out the playbook. It's more like take the things that we like from that playbook, and then add our own spin to it. Every day when you come in, and I find myself in that position where you're like, how the fuck did I get here? Like what am I doing in front of this whiteboard, explaining this thing that I don't really feel like I should even be the subject matter expert right now, but I guess I am. Tag I'm it. It's pretty fucking fun, to be honest with you.
Josh, where can everybody find you guys at?
Yeah.
Well, we have
Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff.
So Instagram is Silencer Co, right? At Silencer Co, whatever. SilencerCo.com. We have a fightthenoise.org, which is our advocacy side of things. We spend a lot of focus on advocacy, changing laws, both on the state level and the federal level. I urge everybody to go to fightthenoise.org to send letters to your state delegations so that they can pass the Hearing Protection Act. That would be extremely helpful. And then Facebook is, Silencer Co, youtube.com/Silencer Co. So, yeah.
And there's a lot of interesting content on that YouTube channel. I can add to that. So.
Oh, you gotta watch the April Fool's video coming out.
Oh, when's that drop?
Tomorrow morning.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
On April Fool's.
On April Fools.
Yeah. It is
Awesome.
to date one of the funniest videos I think we've done. So
I'm excited.
I'm excited.
Well, Josh, hey, thanks for your time. And thanks for coming out
thank
today.
you so much, man.
yeah, I appreciate you guys.
From Salt Lake City, Matt Best, Evan Hafer, Jared Taylor. This is BlackHearted.
Black Rifle Coffee Company, along with Arson Wave, would like to thank you for tuning in to BlackHearted. Have a great fucking day.